Next, let's turn to mining specific on-chain metrics. We'll take a look at hash rate and mining difficulty. So hash rate is a measurement of the processing power running in a proof of work system. Higher hash rates indicate more computers mining for cryptocurrency, and lower hash rates indicate less computers mining crypto. Now, one could consider that the hash rate is correlated with user interest in a project, where if the coin is doing well or is believed to do well in the future, there is more incentive to mine it. Similar to hash rate, mining difficulty is used to measure the amount of hashes required to mine a block. For Bitcoin, Bitcoin mining difficulty is often measured as a comparison to the difficulty of mining the Genesis block, which is the first block, block 0, of the blockchain, the one that Satoshi Nakamoto, the original creator of Bitcoin, he created that, he or she, whoever he is. He created the Bitcoin network, and he was the first one to mine and create the Genesis block, the very first block of Bitcoin. And that required 2 to the 32nd power hashes. Now, the Bitcoin blockchain was programmed at the time of creation to ensure that the time to mine a block will always remain about 10 minutes, which was equivalent to this level of hashes. Now, you don't necessarily need to know the electrical factors going into this and have a knowledge of power and electricity and coding to understand Bitcoin difficulty and mining difficulty. The main idea is to understand that the Bitcoin network will always regulate itself and remain about 10 minutes to add a block. Now, if more people are entering the mining space, more companies are entering mining, more computers are running and devoting their processing power, we'll see the mining difficulty raise. That way it self-regulates itself, right? It'll raise to ensure that even though there's more and more processing power being devoted to Bitcoin, it'll always remain about 10 minutes. Likewise, if the mining difficulty falls, that's an indication that less people are mining Bitcoin, and the Bitcoin mining difficulty will lower to self-regulate and ensure that the block time remains about 10 minutes. So here's a chart. Here's the mean hash rate, or the average hash rate of Bitcoin over time. We've generally seen over time the Bitcoin hash rate has tremendously increased, and has actually since 2017, 2018, we've actually seen it correlate with the general actual price movement and particular cycles, where we saw like there was a decline in Bitcoin price. Mining hash rate went up at the same time and then began to fall along with the general market decline. Bitcoin was holding to a high of about, let's say, this went to maybe about 4K or so, 3K. It fell down to this level about 4K. And at the same time, the mining mean hash rate actually declined as well. The first time it declined noticeably since maybe even before 2017. It reached early 2018 levels in the beginning of 2019. So still relatively high, but a noticeable drop. We see the same thing here. Over time, the Bitcoin mining hash rate has increased, implying and indicating that more and more people are entering the mining space, more and more companies, and they're not only more and more people are entering, but more and more units and actual computers and hardware is being dedicated to mining and processing transactions. We see this particular dip here. This is obviously due to the decline in mining, particularly in May and June of 2021, associated with the Chinese mining ban. But it was quickly retraced, as we can see, right? And then even produced new all-time highs, higher than the ones observed in 2021 and 2020. and continuing to do so despite the price decreases going into 2022. So this is something that's interesting. The interest in Bitcoin mining is increasing despite the decline, because most would speculate that it is the belief that Bitcoin will continue to increase in value despite the short-term valuations that we're seeing today. Now here's the Ethereum mean hash rate. Once again, generally, interest in Ethereum mining has increased as well. We have seen a significant mining decrease in around May and June and July 2021, once again associated with the Chinese mining ban. That wasn't just for Bitcoin mining facilities and services, but it was for all cryptocurrency. And Ethereum is one of the major cryptocurrencies that is being mined, really second to only Bitcoin. So it is no surprise to see that it was affected in that ban as well. Now here's the mining difficulty in general, the actually specific readings of it. Once again, just general correlations. These are different ways of seeing and understanding this mining difficulty. We've seen mining difficulty increase and decrease depending on the hash rate, which is the processing power devoted to the network, and really fluctuating depending on the amount of users, the amount of equipment involved in the mining community and the mining process. Now, what's interesting here is here's the Ethereum one in blue. Now, at the same time, there are certain fluctuations that have happened in the Bitcoin mining difficulty that may not necessarily have happened in the Ethereum mining difficulty. Ethereum mining difficulty seems to have a much smoother trajectory in terms of the actual difficulty of mining Ethereum, and which could be associated with possible less volatility compared to the Bitcoin mining community, which has been uprooted so drastically. Maybe there was not as many Ethereum miners in China compared to the amount of Bitcoin miners that were in China. That's something that would have to remain to be seen and analyzed more in depth, but there does seem to be a bit more of a smoother trajectory compared to the Bitcoin mining, which has seen a little bit more fluctuations and volatility in terms of difficulty. Now, to counter mining coins and proof of work networks, let's take a look at the amount staked, active stake pools, and total stake addresses, mainly pertaining to proof of stake coins. So total amount staked is a similar metric used in proof of stake, where the amount of coins staked can indicate more users and higher interest in the project. Once again, it's just a reading of the amount of coins that people have put into these contracts, into these deposits that they are depositing in. So let's say something like Cardano. You can deposit your coins into a staking pool and receive passive interest on the amount that you've staked, and those coins are used to help process and certify transactions. We could also look towards the number of active staking pools, which can be an indication of the level of decentralization a network consensus protocol has, where higher amounts of pools indicate a more diverse or more decentralized ecosystem, as opposed to low levels of pools or decreasing low levels of pools, which suggests a more centralized consensus protocol. Remember to keep in mind that in terms of staking pools, these are the miners, if you will, or the pools that are helping to process transactions. They're bundling transactions into blocks, and those blocks are added to the blockchain. Higher amounts of pools indicate that there's more individual or it's a much more diverse ecosystem where there's different pools processing transactions, different actors, different groups processing transactions, as opposed to low levels of pools, which suggests a much more centralized. There's fewer amounts of pools, there's fewer amounts of entry points in terms of processing transactions, and that really gives more power in the hands of a few. We can also look towards total staked addresses. This is the amount of individual addresses actively staking on the network. This too acts as a measurement of the level of decentralization a network consensus protocol has, where high numbers of staked addresses indicate more individual users contributing, furthering the decentralization of the network. And then we have low numbers of staked addresses indicating few individual users contributing, a sign of centralization. There's less people involved in the amount in the staking process, and that indicates that it's really just a few people involved in staking on that protocol. Let's take a look at some various different protocols and see how they match up. So here are some examples. This is Cardano. This is actually from stakingrewards.com or stakepool.com. So this is Cardano. We're taking a look at the amount of stakers over time. We've generally seen about over a 30-day period. We've seen that Cardano's market cap is about $25 billion at this given time. The staked value, meaning the value of the amount staked, is about $18 billion. So about $18 billion is locked into the Cardano protocol, right? Specifically just to help process transactions. And in terms of participating, about 67% of Cardano is locked away into staking pools. So that is a great sign of decentralization. To counter this, here we see Polkadot. This is another chain that utilizes proof of stake. Right now they have a $19 billion market cap, and they have a staked value of about $11 billion. So this is still a considerable amount of money. We see about 53% of Polkadot is staked into the network. Next up, Solana. So here is Solana. Solana with a $27 billion market cap and with a staked value of $32 billion. So here's an interesting situation where we see the value of the staked protocol, the value of the amount staked is higher than the actual market cap. So that could be due to speculation. If all of these coins were to sell at the same time, there would be a bit of a domino effect, so it actually would not retain this value. We also see about 74% of Solana is actually staked as well, and we do see numerous fluctuations in terms of stakers. Next up, let's take a look at Avalanche. This is the new, and arguably a newer protocol compared to the other three. Avalanche has a market cap of about $18 billion with a staked value equivalent to about $14 billion. So once again, this is a significant amount, and it has sees about 50%, almost 51% of the total amount of addresses in Avalanche participating in its staking protocol. We have seen declines in the amount staked in terms of addresses. We hit a high, at least in the past 30 days, of about 18,450 with a sharp decline on March 4th, but that number seems to be steadily increasing for the time being.